Very grateful for the presence of everyone this evening, and as was announced in the bulletin this morning, tonight I plan to give a report on the most recent trip that I've made, this time to the Baltic states and France. I expect that you know where France is. The Baltic states, maybe I could give a little bit more of an explanation. They are the ones that are on the Baltic Sea. They are states that at one time were a part of the Soviet Union. That I knew. What I didn't realize until I made the trip was, I guess it's only around 1990 or 1991 that they escaped that Soviet influence. And it's kind of an interesting time to be visiting there. You can see it's right against the country of Russia. And we know what happened to Crimea, and we know things that have gone on in the Ukraine. And we wonder if there'll be a time when Russia will try to take these states back. And in fact, there is the Baltic Sea. You may remember in the news, maybe a month, 2 months ago, Soviet aircraft were buzzing some of our ships that were in the Baltic Sea. Baltic Sea, that's why these are called the Baltic states. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, countries with a wonderful and rich history. But one thing I was going to say here, let me just mention that you see there's Tallinn. The places we went to were Tallinn, Riga, and on the coast here there's Klaipėda and Vilnius. There are really only two major airports. So you'll find that what we're doing is flying into one place, taking long bus trips, car trips to get to the others, and it may be kind of confusing because we go a place, then we go another, then we come back. But that was necessitated by the transportation requirements. So thank you for your prayers. I appreciate your prayers, especially in circumstances that are a little difficult. It's consoling to know that people are praying. Your interest, your encouragement. You encourage me by your interest. And the financial support, if you can find opportunities and you can find tickets, you still can't go unless there is some way to pay for those tickets. So started the journey. Some things were a little different for me for this journey. One is my flight was not until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That was a change. Usually I'm there, as we say, it's 0:30. A second thing that was kind of different this time was I was greeted by one of these comfort dogs. They have the dog that go around the airport and you can pet the dog. And I don't know, do people get stressed in airports? I guess they do. I guess we all do. So there were some things that were different. Oh yeah. One other thing was different. They were people with me on this trip. Carol, for those who might be visiting, my wife Carol, my granddaughter Sydney, who is to be a senior this coming year, they went along on this trip, and what an extra joy it was to have them along. It's joy to have them along. It's just a relief to have somebody else worrying about when is the next flight and how do we get there. So we got kind of settled in for the long trip, going through Atlanta to Amsterdam. I guess that's a long trip, certainly not as long as several, that have been made in the past. Changed planes in Amsterdam, went on to Riga and Latvia. And there was one of the places that we landed. I added this, I was just interested. This little building that kind of sat on the back part of the airport, that represented what the terminal building looked like during the days of the Soviet Union. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And of course, today, a much more modern looking airport. This is one of the places, even though we've been flying, for a day and a half to get there, for our plans it really worked better just to immediately catch the bus and go on up to Tallinn in Estonia. So the preacher in Riga in Latvia, Victor, met us, had enough time, he fed us, took us to the airport, and that was, took us to the bus, took us from the airport to the bus. That was a great help. Great buses over there. In some countries I've ridden buses that weren't too great. These were great. As good as any buses I've seen in the U.S. Have Wi-Fi on them, so it worked really, really, really very good. So we took the bus then. If you can see, we had to fly into Riga because that was the airport. Took the bus up to Tallinn. There's an idea of what the inside of the bus looked like. Nice looking bus terminal in Tallinn, probably better than the way some of them look here in the U.S. And there we were met by the preacher, Nikolai, and it was glad to have a chance to meet him. I had a chance there to meet somebody else too. Somebody that I had known, as they say, on Facebook for several years. His name is Samson. Samson, I don't remember how I first got introduced to him on Facebook. Became a good friend there. He would call me every once in a while. We actually talk on the phone. Ours was not totally just Facebook going back and forth. Samson is the guy that says, Stan, you need to go visit these Baltic states. In summertime, they have summer camps where Christians from not only the states there and the Baltics get together, but from Europe, other countries in Europe, people in the U.S. He said, you just really need to go there. He's the one that got me interested in it, got me started that direction, helped me meet the other people, the ones like the preacher on the left. He just really opened the door. And was helping me make my reservations, or not reservations, but at least make the plans to visit them. And then something happened to him. He got engaged. And it seems like he was distracted for a while, but by then he had introduced me to the others, and I was able to complete the plans. But that Samson there, I don't know what, it was a joy to finally meet Samson. He'd been part of my evangelistic thinking for a long time. And the wife, you know, in India, he is from India. From the time they arranged the marriage, it was only about a month before he was married. But I tell you, talking to her, that's going to be a great evangelistic prayer. Don't want to spend too much time on the scenery, but these Baltic countries, they have so much of their history back in the 13th and 14th century. The thing that you see about them, at least I do on TV, is all the colored roofs, the red roofs, the green roofs, the walls dating back to the 13th centuries, some of the watchtowers within the walls. But what we did there, didn't have very long there. Wanted to have a chance to have some fellowship with them. So what did we do? Went out to eat together. How else? But it was an old restaurant. I mean, they served things in the style of 200 years ago. You got hog, you got duck. They wouldn't have known if you talked about a hamburger or anything like that. But you can see us gathered there. There I am, Nikolai, Samson, his wife, Carol, and Sydney. It's a very interesting place. Very interesting place. So, had a chance I was not there on a Sunday. So really didn't have a chance to preach there, but had a chance to go there. And I really think sometimes just meeting the people and spending some time with them and letting them know that you're interested enough, even with some other members of your family that come there, they find that encouraging. But on the bus back to Riga and got there, and in one car there had to be all of us, plus the driver, plus Yuris, a fairly new Christian, but somebody who really expressed interest in our coming and kind of wanted to be our tour guide while we were there. So we got all of us and all of the luggage in the car, but it wasn't necessarily easy. We made it, got back to the motel okay. And there he is. Again, you recognize this is Victor. He's the one that met us in the beginning and got us on our way to Tallinn. But now we're back in his hometown. This they particularly wanted to show us. I think it's sort of like our Arlington Cemetery. These countries over there have been through some wars. And the camaraderie that they feel, I guess, in their plights is expressed by the name. It's called the Riga Brethren Cemetery. That's not Church of Christ Brethren. That's how they think of one another. And because of the Soviet background, many of the signs are also in Russian, as well as in Latvian. So I had a chance to see a little bit of the scenery there. I'll just show you just the skyline. That went a lot of the tall church towers, and you see one on the left. And that's something else that's distinctive is the brick or the rock or the stone open square areas. Places for people to get together, places for people to sit. One other thing I was going to mention before we start talking about the actual preaching. Those are Zeppelin hangars. Can you see those right through there? There are 5 Zeppelin hangars, like the big old dirigibles, I guess. And I was Googling this afternoon. There are only 9 of those left in the world, and 5 of them are here. What did they do with one of them? They turned it into a huge market. If you want to read about it, you can read about it in Riga, the Central Market. And this Sydney used as an opportunity. One of her missions over there was to buy some money. And so this was one of the places where I guess it was after the services on Sunday, we went by there, and she was able to stop and buy the honey. Church of Christ there in Riga doesn't have its separate building. It meets in the Latvian Academy of Sciences. So that was nice, go right at home. And they kind of meet in kind of a hallway. It's not like in an isolated room. I posted that, and some people were back. Are they meeting in the hallway? And I guess I was in the moment. I wasn't thinking that much about it, but yeah, they're meeting there in the hallway. And it was a group of people, a nice group of people. Again, this was the time of the year when a lot of their members, maybe especially the younger members, were off in the camps, the camps, the rural camps. But the group of people there were very nice, and I had a chance to speak, and Victor translated. As I mentioned, you'll hear me clearly. In this case, you won't hear him as loudly.
God is the one who always knows what is best for us. God is the one who always wants us to have what is best for us. God has told us what is best for us. When we read in God's will what He tells us to do, we should know that is the very best thing for us. Why would we ever want to do anything different?
I was impressed with that small group of people. I started doing the Bible class, got part of the way through the Bible class. They started asking questions. They asked me questions for 2 hours. I kept asking the preacher, well, do we need to move on to something? He says, oh no, this is fine, go ahead. But when you got people that will sit still and ask questions about the Bible for 2 hours, I thought it was great. I thought it was great. That wasn't all we did there. We had an opportunity to pass out some flyers. Victor took us to one of the transportation hubs out in kind of the open area. And there's Carol, there's Sydney. There I am with Sydney. Who could possibly resist those 2 charming faces? Who could possibly not take a flyer from one of that pair? And there's Sydney's back. And there were some people. I mean, transportation hub people were very, very busy. Sometimes I wondered if maybe an off street might be a little better, but they would stop, they would take the flyers. Well, I learned a long time ago, I had a chance to pass out flyers up in Murmansk, northern part of Russia. I don't like people stuffing things at me, poking things at me in the malls. So what I learned to do is just stand there and just kind of hold it out like this as they go by. And I think a lot of people would stop, reach over and take it. But not only would they take the flyers, as you can see, there were a few opportunities when they were willing to stop and engage in a little bit of a conversation. So, had an opportunity to preach and teach, and for the 3 of us to be an encouragement to the brethren there, and even a little active on the streets evangelism. Good opportunities. When that guy from India, Samson, when he said, go to the Baltic states, there'll be opportunities for you there, he was not wrong. From there, we headed to Paris, and a flight a little bit south and west. What would you expect Charles de Gaulle Airport to look like? You'd expect it to look crowded, wouldn't you? And it was. In Paris, I could show a lot of different pictures of Paris. Let me just tell you some of the things that kind of surprised me. This was taken later. We did finally on the last night had a chance to go to the Eiffel Tower. We got there just before dark and were there after dark, and I'll show you a couple of pictures of that. What struck me about Paris, even when I was down in the town, was the uniform height of the buildings. They were about 6 floors tall, that was all. Later somebody told me there was a law that they couldn't be greater than 7. I thought maybe it had something to do with not obstructing the view of the Eiffel Tower. Evidently, it has a lot to do with safety. People used to build big porches on the tops, and they would fall over, and when they caught fire and other things, so they limited the heights of the building. But I tell you, it's just kind of strange to see, for me at least, to see a city that big without a bunch of tall skyscrapers or a bunch of tall observation towers or something. And down in the city, I kind of didn't like it. I kind of felt like I was in a bunch of boxed canyons. You know, it was just on all sides. A beautiful city, I guess. I wasn't as impressed with Paris as I was some of those cities in the Baltic states. But the building height, I was intrigued by that. Maybe someday I can gather up some of my pictures and put them in a folder on Facebook or something. The Arch of Triumph, the Arc de Triomphe, Notre Dame. A lot of people have a building like that, and of course the one in Paris is just extraordinary. And we went to the Louvre Museum, and here I got to give Sydney credit. She had learned that if you take the metro, there's actually kind of a back door that you can go into. Well, not a less well-known route to get into the Louvre. There's a lot of people want to see the Louvre Museum. I put it in my Facebook post. Sydney was loving it. To me, it was like pearls before swine. You know, all those beautiful things, and it's impressive. What you would think a museum would have one of, the Louvre would have a dozen of. I did see one thing that I recognized, though, so I took pictures of it and a lot of other things. And of course, got to mention the Eiffel Tower. I took some pictures of it. Lots of tall towers in the world, and I've been to a lot of them. This one's been around since the mid to late 1800s. It was one of the first. And if the city looked kind of boring because of the uniform height in the daytime, the opposite was true at night. It was remarkable to see the way that the city was lit up in colors, various areas. Some were sports arenas, some were just like, I guess, like the mall that exists in Washington, D.C., but it was really spectacular. And this little bright spot over here, that's that Triumph Arch again. You zoom in on it. So maybe kind of uniform in the daytime, but really very nice to see at night. So we were only able to do that the very last night that we were there. So glad we had a chance to see that for a few hours. Now, the Church of Christ in Paris. I began to check about it, and you can go on Google Maps and you can do the street view, and I saw it there, and I remember that a friend of mine, a long-time friend of mine in Virginia, he talked about Paris. So I sent him a message and said, hey, I think I'm going to have a chance to go to Paris. What should I see there? And he says, are you going to this particular church? And I said, yes. And I sent him a picture, much like that, from the street view on Google Maps. And he says, well, the first window is the living room, the second window is the dining room, the third and the fourth and the fifth windows are bedrooms. And I'm like, how do you know that? He lived there. Many years we were in Virginia. He was a friend there. From time to time he would mention Paris. I never understood. His father was the preacher there in the 60s. His name was Ainsley. He said, Stan, that upstairs apartment, he says, I think of that as my boyhood home. So I had a kind of chance to connect yesterday and today and took some pictures and sent those to my friend and mentioned him, of course, to the preacher that was there now. Very friendly, very nice group. Interesting building. I mean, obviously been there since at least the 50s, if not before. I should have taken a picture of the baptistry, because what my friend told me was this used to be a mechanic's garage is what it was. And the oil collection pit is what they converted into the baptistry. So I should have taken a picture of the baptistry. Anyhow, how how do you evaluate a congregation when you travel? I walk in the front door and I look for the track rack. Do they have a track rack? Is it a well-stocked track rack? What kind of tracks do they have in the track rack? This congregation, evidently, from what I understand, is one of only 3 sound congregations left in all of France. Not just Paris, but all of France. And people who talk about it lamented the days, I guess, 20, 30 years ago when Europe had more sound congregations, but such is not the case. But there's the congregation. This was on a Wednesday night. I had a chance to meet with the group. A lot of young people there. I was kind of impressed with that. And you can see Carol, Sydney on the far left hand over there. And the preacher is Roland Motion is his name. He has been there for many years. And such is the case, I have found, with the ones that have remained faithful. I've visited them in several different countries, and the ones who've had somebody who has been there and stayed there, help them to remain faithful. And taught the Bible class. I'll try to give you a little sample of that. We'll see if they can test of how good the Muhas French is. That's not the point.
But then I want to talk about different kinds of qualities. Donc, je vais parler d'une autre sorte de qualité. The qualities that God has that we can have. Les qualités qu'il a et que nous jamais avoir. God has character qualities that He expects us to have. Dieu a un caractère en lui qui s'attend de nous, le désir en nous-mêmes. He expects us to be people who love because He loves. S'attend que les gens aiment parce que Dieu aime. He expects us to be righteous because He is righteous. S'attend qu'on soit juste car Il est bien juste. So there are some qualities in which we can be like God. Donc il y a certaines qualités caractéristiques qu'on peut être comme Dieu. And then we must be like God. Et en fait, on doit être. God wants all His children to be like Him. Dieu veut que tous ses enfants soient comme lui.
That's just a special joy to have an opportunity to teach in a situation like that. Of course, many of the people there spoke English. They were able to ask their questions in English. I was able to answer them in English. But especially this young man right here in the blue, I think that probably I'll have a continuing relationship with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he and I wind up traveling together to some of the other surrounding countries. But that was France. From France, we flew into Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania. Flew into there because that was the major airport. The major place that I taught in Lithuania, the major place that we visited, was down on the coast, the town of Klaipėda. So we went by car from Vilnius to the coastal town of Klaipėda. And you know, it was just surprise after surprise. These old Baltic, former Soviet Union states, I was expecting, you know, old, dirty, almost third world, crooked roads with potholes. Their highways, they compared very favorably to ours. We had hours of the drive, I forgot now, somewhere maybe around 5 hours. Great roads, very smooth, very interesting scenery along the way. I don't want to spend all the time on scenery, but you know, they got the wind machines. They have some historical remembrances of the past, maybe from the older days. It's hard to see right here, but there's a little village there on the other side of the pond. It's just great. Modern transportation mixed in with quaint scenery. And we got to Klaipėda about 9 or 9:30 at night. It's pretty far north. All of this all 3 of the Baltic states are north of Poland. If you look on a map, they're roughly along the same latitude as Moscow. So daytime hours last a long time up there. There I met Ilya Amasov. It's not Asimov. I kept on spelling, you know, like the scientist. But he pointed out that Ilya, I guess, is a form of the word Elijah. Amasov is a lot like Amos, so he's claiming he's got 2 biblical names. This guy, too, I've seen him on Facebook for several years. He was already married when I saw him on Facebook. I watched them as they had their first child. Been looking forward to meeting this guy for a long time. And Anticipation was not greater than realization. He, his family, good people. Another one of the little coastal towns, seaports, big ships around that area. Combination of the quaint, combination of the modern shipping, and this I got to show you. In one part of the coastal area, there was sort of a little inland bay, and they had a rotating bridge. You know, it rotated in one direction so the people could walk across it. It rotated in the other direction so the ships could go by it. How was it rotated? Literally by manpower. There was a spindle in the second, and the guys in the center, and the guys were out there like oxen in a mill, you know, going round and round and round and round to get that bridge to lie up against the edge so the ships could get through. Now here, the church had a very nice building. I don't know what the difference in the support or the history of the support was, but this was very nice. Really, the downstairs is the church building here. The upper part of that is the residence for the preacher. And you can see the sign that's there. That's the church of Christ. There's their Facebook page. It's got the building on there. There's the address. There's the preacher and his wife. It's an interesting story. He was a later in life married, but he says, I prayed. I prayed not only for a wife, but I prayed for the kind of wife that I wanted. And he says his prayers were answered exactly. There he is. There's the baby. That's her mother that was visiting that day. I had a chance to meet her also. That's their residence. This is the upper part of the building. The lower part, you can see the seats there that form the auditorium. And there I am preaching, and we'll have just a...
It's talking about that they have the right kind of faith and all. Their works were determined by their right kind of faith. Their hard spiritual work was motivated by their love. And their steadfast endurance was inspired by their hope.
It's Lithuanian, but Ilya's first language was Russian. So he is I don't know how you say ESL, English is the second language. He has Lithuanian as the second language. So I had an opportunity to preach to the congregation there, visit with some of the members, visit with the family. I would hope that they were much encouraged. Again, not as many people there. Of course, I don't have to preach to the audience as usual because many of them were away. In fact, he was there, I think. It was unusual for him to be there. It was great that he was there, gave us a chance to meet him, talk to him, encourage him. So, that was down on the coastal city. In order to fly back to the U.S., we had to get back to the good airport up in Vilnius. Along the way, one more sightseeing thing, there was an island castle. So we just kind of resist that. I don't think it was 10, 15 miles off the way as we came back. It's really extraordinary. Why build a moat around your castle? You can build your castle on an island in the middle of a lake. Doesn't that work just as well? Just old, archaic kinds of stuff. And it was here that Sydney and I kind of had a bit of an unpleasant surprise. This was toward the end of the journey, and we really thought that we'd been behaving ourselves fairly well. But here we found out that Carol didn't necessarily agree. We thought we'd been good. So back into the capital city of Vilnius again. Okay, this is an inland area. I thought, well, it's not going to be cute like the little coastal towns. It was amazing. Beautiful river ran through the city. You can kind of see the towers, the castle tower that built up on the little hill. It's just kind of that way everywhere. Very, very different. I've been to Africa, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam. Just never really saw quite so many things quite like this. There is a Church of Christ there. Only had a few hours to spend with the preacher. I tell you, I probably spent the least time with him of any of them. But I really liked him. He's another person that I expect I will try to team up with someday and perhaps go preaching and evangelizing in some of the other countries. Our last day of this journey in the Baltic states was July the 4th. And if you saw the Facebook post, it was just one of the most beautiful rainbows I have ever seen. I guess I should have tried to take a panorama. It was unusual in that, for example, on the right-hand end, I took an enlarged view. You can see the end of the rainbow between where I was and the mountain. That's kind of unusual to see the rainbow, and you can tell where it is. Much easier to run out there and find that pot of gold because it's between you and that next mountain. But I was struck by that, thought about July the 4th, and I put this in the post that July the 4th is, or it should be, a day for remembering the many ways in which God has blessed this nation. But I thought what we had there in those Baltic states and Lithuania with that phenomenal rainbow, just a pointed reminder of how much God has blessed the whole creation. Amen. So I kind of appreciated that as the end of the journey. Again, thank you all for helping provide the opportunities to go into all the world and preach, but not just preach, teach, encourage the people that are there. There are evidently 5 sound congregations in the 3 Baltic states. I had a chance to meet with preachers, or we did, in 4 out of the 5. And then one of the 3 sound congregations in France spoke in Riga in Latvia, distributed flyers there. Klaipėda, Lithuania, Paris, France, had a chance to do preaching and teaching. And I think we did some encouraging in some of those other places also. So thank you all. Thank you again. Thankful you for your encouragement as expressed by your interest. Thank you for your prayers. And thank you for, over the years, your continued financial support that makes these trips possible. But you know, we preach the gospel in other countries, but we preach it here in the U.S. too. This congregation is responsible for helping preachers in a number of different places, supporting them in preaching school. And we do have ways that we evangelize the local community. We're not just having one focus. But it does no good for anybody to hear the gospel if they don't respond to the gospel. If you're here tonight, you're a person who's never obeyed the gospel, never done those things that the scriptures teach are necessary to become a Christian. They teach that it's necessary to be a child of God. If you haven't done those things that teaches are necessary to become one of the saved, we'd be glad to help you study the scripture. Really, it's fairly easy to outline. You have to hear, you have to believe. Believe in God, believe in Jesus as the Son, John 8:24. Yeah, your heart has to change. The Bible calls that repentance. Luke 13:3, Jesus says if you don't repent, you're going to perish. Then it talks about confessing. Confessing Jesus, acknowledging Him for who He is. We talked about that this morning. Who is He? The voice from heaven said, "This is my Son." He is the Son of God. He is the Christ, the promised Messiah. Need to be willing to acknowledge Him, then to be baptized for the remission of sins. Acts 2:38. If you have not done those things, we would encourage you to do them. If there's some way we can assist you in learning more about them or doing them, we would be delighted to help you. We can help you tonight. You'll come forward as we sing. Amen.